Those who have been to a ruined wedding, what happened? I used to do catering work, and let me tell you, it was a wild ride. Not the kind of wild like, let's go skydiving wild, but more like 1 minute you're serving hors d'oeuvre to celebrities at a fancy fundraiser, and the next you're slapping together sandwiches for a corporate pick. This one time, I got sent out to this remote location deep in the woods, right along a beautiful river. Now, on paper, it sounded like a dream assignment. Scenic views, fresh air, and all that good stuff. My boss, Tom, was talking it up like it was the catering equivalent of an all-expenses-paid vacation to a five-star resort. I'm nodding along, picturing a laid-back day of setting up some nice tables, maybe grilling a few steaks while listening to the river babble along. But then, while we were loading up the truck, Tom drops this bomb on me. He's not coming. I'm gonna need you to handle this one on your own, he says, like he's telling me to pick up some milk on the way home, not run a whole damn event. I'm standing there, holding a tray of champagne flutes, just blinking it. Wait, what? You're not coming? I ask, half expecting him to burst out laughing and say, gotcha! No, he's dead serious. Now, usually I'm the guy in the background, you know? The one running around making sure the chafing dishes are full, the wine glasses are topped off, and nobody's gluten-free aunt is about to eat the regular rolls by mistake. I'm not the in-charge guy. That's Tom's job. He's the one who talks to the clients, handles the disasters, and smooths everything over with a smile and a, no problem, we've got it covered. And here he is, telling me I'm going to be the guy. The top dog, the dude everyone's going to be looking at when things inevitably go sideways. I'm starting to panic a little, but Tom's swearing up and down that everything's handled, all set up and good to go, he keeps saying, like he's trying to convince himself as much as me. Just show up and make it happen. He claps me on the shoulder and grins like he's sending me off to summer camp, not into the middle of nowhere with a truck full of food and a skeleton crew. So I figure, how hard can it be? I mean, I've been doing this job long. I know how to set up a table, pour wine, and schmooze with the best of them. And hey, Tom said it's all set up, right? There's probably a tent, some tables, maybe even a grill all ready to go. I'm picturing this idyllic riverside setup, white tablecloths fluttering in the breeze, guests mingling with glasses of rosé in hand, piece of cake. Fast forward a couple of hours, and I'm bumping down this dirt road in the middle of nowhere, my confidence starting to waver with every pothole we hit. The trees are getting thicker, and there's not a soul in sight. Just me, the truck, and my two assistants, who look about as thrilled as I feel. I keep telling myself, he said it's all taken care of. He wouldn't leave us hanging. But the further we go, the more I'm getting this nagging feeling that maybe Tom's idea of all setup and my idea of all setup are not the same thing. By the time we finally pull up to this so-called event site, I'm starting to feel like a kid who just realized he's been dropped off at the wrong birth. I hop out of the truck, take one look around, and my jaw almost hits the ground. It's just a big empty field. No tent, no tables, no chairs, no grill. Hell, there's not even a porta-potty in sight. Just grass and trees and this beautiful river snaking its way through the middle of nowhere, mocking me with its peaceful serenity. And the event is supposed to start in an hour. I'm standing there, trying to process what I'm seeing, or not seeing, more like, when one of my assistants, Jake, looks at me and says, is this the right place? And I'm thinking, I don't know, man. I just work here. But I don't say that. Instead, I pull out my phone, praying there's a signal. There isn't. I'm pacing around like a madman, trying to figure out what the hell to do. I mean, there's nothing here. We're supposed to be serving a full 3-course meal to 50 people in less than an hour, and I'm staring at a blank canvas. It's like showing up to paint a masterpiece and finding out you've got no brushes, no paint, and no idea what the hell you're doing. I'm cursing Tom under my breath, wishing I could throttle him through the phone. I'm about to send the truck back, call it quits, when I remember the #1 rule of catering. Never let them see you sweat. So I take a deep breath, slap on my best fake smile, and turn to Jake and Sarah, my other assistant, who both look like they're ready to jump back in the truck and leave me to my breakdown in the woods. All right, I say, clapping my hands together like I've got some brilliant plan. Let's make it happen. So there I am, Standing in this empty field, no cell service, staring at two very worried assistants and trying to channel my inner Tom, who's probably sitting on his couch right now, sipping a beer, blissfully unaware that his all-set-up gig is on the verge of becoming the worst disaster since the Titanic. But there's no time to panic. I had to do something. Fast. I could feel the seconds ticking away like a bomb ready to go off. I start barking orders at Jake and Sarah, pretending I know what I'm doing, even though my mind is racing a mile a minute. "All right, Jake, grab those tables from the truck and start setting them up over there," I say, pointing to a flat spot near the river. "Sarah, see if we've got any kind of tent in the back. Anything. We've got to at least try to make it look like we planned this." Jake starts unloading tables, and Sarah's rummaging through the truck like a squirrel looking for a lost acorn. But we're short on everything. No tent, just a couple of flimsy pop-up canopies we use for shade at the beach. No chairs, just a few folding stools we usually keep for staff. I needed extension cords to run the coffee and tea, but there were none. We've got a grill, but no propane. I feel like I'm on one of those survival shows, except I'm not trying to survive a week in the wilderness. Just 3 hours of serving appetizers and keeping 50 people from realizing this is a complete and utter. I'm scrambling to throw things together, improvising like crazy. Jake's struggling with the tables, trying to get them level on the uneven ground. I find a couple of coolers in the back of the truck and set them up as makeshift food stations. Sarah's managed to find some tablecloths and is desperately trying to tie them to the canopy frames to create some kind of windbreak. It's all looking pretty pathetic, to be honest, but we've got no other choice. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking down, and I'm sweating bullets. It's hot, I'm stressed, and I'm pretty sure I've got poison ivy from tripping over a bush while trying to find a place to stash the empty boxes. I'm running around like a headless chicken, checking on everything and everyone, pretending I've got this under control. Somehow we managed to rig up this makeshift setup. It's not pretty, but it'll have to do. We've got a couple of tables set up with some basic snacks. The grill jury rigged to run off a can of sterno fuel I found in the bottom of a box, and the pop-up canopies set at weird angles because we don't have enough stakes to secure them properly. But hey, at least it doesn't look like a completely abandoned field anymore. Guests start trickling in, and I'm holding my breath, waiting for the inevitable whispers, the pointing fingers, the angry phone calls to Tom. But people are actually smiling, chatting, enjoying the view of the river. I start to relax a little, thinking maybe, just maybe, we'll pull this off. Then the bride and groom arrive. They're glowing, looking around like it's the most beautiful place they've ever seen, and I'm thinking, thank God they didn't see this place an hour ago. They're taking pictures. The guests are settling in. And I'm starting to think we might just survive this. And then, just as I'm about to pour myself a glass of water and take a moment to breathe, the worst thing that could happen happens. We blow the fuse for our only power source. Boom. Everything goes dark. The music stops. The lights on the buffet tables go out, and I swear I can feel my heart stop. I rush over to the breaker box, tripping over a rock and almost face-planting in front of the bartender, who's looking at me like, "Dude, what the hell?" I'm flipping switches like a man possessed, trying to remember what Tom said about overloading circuits. I reset the breaker, move some stuff around to lighten the load, and we're back in business. But the panic is setting in. I'm sweating, my hands are shaking, and I'm pretty sure my blood pressure is through the roof. But I've got no time to worry. I just keep moving. Keep checking things, trying to keep everyone calm and happy. I even managed to smile and joke with a couple of guests who, thank God, are too busy enjoying the scenery to notice I'm one step away from a full-blown meltdown. I keep the grill going with the makeshift setup, send Jake out to the edge of the property to see if he can find a signal and call Tom, and tell Sarah to pour drinks like her life depends on it. It's a desperate scramble, but somehow, by some miracle, it's working. People are eating, drinking, laugh. The bride and groom are smiling, taking pictures by the river, blissfully unaware that we're holding this whole event together with duct tape and sheer willpower. But deep down, I know we're on borrowed time. One more blown fuse, one more thing goes wrong, and this whole house of cards is coming down. I'm just praying we can make it to the end without any more disasters. So there I am, thinking we've got it back under control, and then, just like that, boom, the fuse blows again. Lights out, music off. Guest looking around like, is this part of the show? My heart drops into my stomach. I sprint back to the breaker box like an idiot. Reset it again. Move a couple more things around, hoping against hope. This will be the magic combination that keeps everything running. But no, 5 minutes later, it happens again. Fuse blows. Everything goes dark. I'm in full-on crisis mode now, running around like a madman, trying to figure out what's drawing too much power. It's like playing the world's most stressful game of whack-a-mole. I'm unplugging lights, shifting things around, trying to keep the essentials going without frying the whole system. At one point, I'm literally holding my breath, staring at the power strip like I can will it to behave. This goes on all night. Blow the fuse, reset it, cross my fingers, blow it again. I'm drenched in sweat, my shirt sticking to my back, looking like I just ran a marathon through a swamp. Jake and Sarah are doing their best to keep the food and drinks flowing. But every time the power goes out, I can see the panic in their eyes. We're hanging on by a thread, trying to keep the show going while everyone's giving speeches and toasts, and doing all the things that make for a perfect wedding night. Except we're out here, practically trying to keep the lights on with sheer willpower alone. Meanwhile, the guests are starting to notice. I can see them whispering to each other, throwing glances our way, and I'm dying inside, trying to pretend like this is no big deal. I'm walking around, putting on my best calm, collected face like, oh, this? Just a little hiccup, folks. Nothing to worry about. But inside, I'm a mess. One fuse away from losing it completely. The worst part is, it's so damn embarrassing. Here we are, supposed to be the professionals, and we can't even keep the lights on. I'm apologizing left and right, trying to reassure the bride and groom that this is just a minor technical difficulty, but I know they can see through me. I'm holding it together with duct tape and desperation, hoping we can limp through the rest of the night without everything going up in flames. And then, just when I think it can't get any worse, it does. We're finally winding down. Guests are starting to leave, and I'm breathing this huge sigh of relief, thinking we've made it through the worst of it. We start packing up, and I tell Jake to go rinse the dishes before we load them back into the truck. I figure we've got one last push and we can get the hell out of there. Jake comes back, looking pale as a ghost, and says, we've got a problem. I'm thinking, what now? Did the grill explode? Did we run out of gas? But no, it's worse. Turns out, blowing the fuses all night also knocked out the water. We've got no running water. None. No water means we can't rinse a damn thing. I head over to the sink, turn the faucet, and it's as dry as the Sahara. I just stand there, staring at it, feeling my last shred of sanity slipping away. I try priming the pump, but nothing's happening. We've got dirty dishes piled up, food trays covered in sauce, utensils sticky with who knows what, and not a drop of water to clean any of it. The whole place needs to be primed again, and I'm just staring at this mountain of dirty dishes, thinking, of course this would happen. Why not? I've got a handful of guests still milling around, watching me, and I'm ready to crawl under a rock and stay. I look at Jake, Sarah, and the rest of the crew, and I can see they're as beat down as I am. We're all sweaty, exhausted, and just done. I finally throw my hands up and say, forget it, we'll take them back dirty. I can't even pretend to care anymore. It's almost midnight, we're dead on our feet, and I just want to load up, get back to civilization, and put this whole nightmare behind us. We start stacking the dirty dishes in the back of the truck, piling them up like we're loading a garbage dump. I'm thinking about how much Tom is going to flip out when he sees this mess. The ride back is going to be hell, with all those trays sliding around, the smell of stale food hanging in the air like some kind of punishment for all the terrible decisions that led me to this moment. The last few guests trickle out, and I muster up one last wave and a forced smile, pretending like everything's fine. The bride and groom come over, and I'm bracing myself for a tirade, an angry outburst, something that'll just put the final nail in the coffin of this cursed night. But instead, they thank me. They actually thank me. The groom even shakes my hand and says, "You guys did an amazing job." I'm standing there, nodding like an idiot, thinking, were you at the same wedding I was? I'm so wiped out I can barely process it. I just mumble something about it being our pleasure and hustle back to the truck before they can change their minds. We finally finish loading up, the truck groaning under the weight of all the dirty dishes and our collective misery, and I climb into the driver's seat, feeling like I've aged about 10 years in one night. We drive back in silence, the only sound the clattering of dishes every time we hit a bump. I'm too tired to even be mad at Tom anymore. I'm just numb, staring at the road, trying to block out the whole disaster and make it back to the kitchen without breaking down. I know I've got a long night ahead of me once we get back, unloading, cleaning, trying to salvage whatever dignity we've got left. But right now, I'm just focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. It's only when we pull into the parking lot and I turn off the engine that it hits me. We survived. Barely, but we did it. I don't know if it was sheer luck, stubbornness, or just some weird twist of fate, but we made it through. I let out this long, deep breath I didn't even know I was holding, and for the first time all night, I feel a tiny bit of relief. But as I look at the mountain of dirty dishes in the back, I can't help but laugh. A low, exhausted chuckle that turns into full-blown hysterics. Because, of course, we've still got to clean all this crap up. But hey, at least we made it through the night, and that's something, right? After what felt like the longest day of my life, we finally hit the road back to the kitchen. The drive was an hour, but it felt like days. The whole way back, the truck was clattering and bumping like it was trying to shake us awake and remind us of the mess we were dragging behind us. Everyone was dead silent, just staring out the windows or leaning back with their eyes closed, too tired to even complain. I kept one hand on the wheel and the other clutched to the side of my head, trying to massage away the throbbing headache that had been pounding like a drum for the last 10 hours. When we got back to the kitchen, I took a deep breath before opening the back of the truck. The smell hit me like a punch in the face. Stale food, sour wine, and this underlying funk of sweat and exhaustion. We started unloading, and it was like some grim version of assembly line work. Jake and Sarah looked like they'd been hit by a truck. I probably looked worse. We just kept our heads down and worked, not even bothering to talk, just grunting and nodding and trying to get through it. Then came the dishes. There were stacks of them, greasy and caked with food. We'd managed to pack them up in a rush, so they were all jumbled together and everything was just stuck. Trays, plates, silverware, all crammed into a chaotic mess. We hauled them into the kitchen, one load after another, and then we started scrubbing. 15 hours into this nightmare, and there we were, elbow deep in hot, soapy water, scrubbing those stupid dishes like we were trying to cleanse our souls along with them. It was mechanical, just the sound of dishes clinking, water splashing, and the occasional hiss of someone cursing under their breath when they burned themselves on a hot tray or nicked a finger on a sharp edge. We didn't take a break, not even for water. It was like we just wanted it to be over so we could go home, crawl into bed, and pretend this day had never happened. It was around 4 in the morning when we finally finished. The last plate clattering onto the drying rack. I looked around at the wreckage of our kitchen, at Jake and Sarah leaning against the counter like they couldn't hold themselves up any, and I felt this wave of, I don't know, something between relief and defeat. Somehow, despite everything, I still felt like I'd ruined that wedding. I couldn't get the image of the bride and groom out of my head, smiling and thanking me while I stood there like a complete fraud, hoping they didn't notice I was 2 seconds away from a breakdown. I felt like I'd just been through a war zone, and I was the last man standing, waving the white flag. It was a total disaster, and even though we'd managed to get through it, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd let everyone down. Tom, the couple, my crew, hell, even myself. That day was a breaking. I realized I wasn't cut out for being the guy who has to hold it all together when everything's falling apart. I didn't want to be the one people looked to when things went sideways. I wanted to be the guy in the background, the one who could slip away when they hit the fan and not have to stand there pretending like I knew what to do. So, I quit that job. It wasn't a dramatic, throw my apron on the floor and storm out kind of quitting. It was more like a quiet, exhausted resignation. I called Tom the next day, and before I could even get the words out, he's laughing and saying, "Heard you had a rough night, huh? Don't worry, we'll get it right next time." But I knew there wasn't going to be a next time. I didn't even get into the details of what happened. He didn't really ask, and I wasn't about to relive it. I just told him I was done, and he sighed, said he understood, and that was it. Looking back now, it's almost funny. The whole thing is like some kind of bad comedy sketch. Guy gets sent into the woods, everything goes wrong, hilarity ensues. I can laugh about it now, but at the moment, it was brutal. Pure panic, mixed with exhaustion and frustration, and this constant feeling like I was one step away from completely losing. It's the kind of experience that makes you question your life choices, you know? If there's one thing I learned from that nightmare of a day, it's this. always check the extension cords. Make sure you've got enough, that they're not frayed, and for the love of God, make sure they can handle the load, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself in the middle of nowhere trying to run a wedding off a single overloaded socket, and it's not going to end well. Trust me on that.